She was crawling across the blood-slick floor when her dead co-worker's phone started ringing. It was her mother calling. Kayla's trembling fingers reached for it, slipping once, twice, then gripping tight. The name Mom glowed on the cracked screen, smeared red. But she couldn't answer. Not yet. Not while he was still out there. Not while her breath came shallow, her ribs screaming with each movement. She held her breath, listening. Nothing but the low hum of the broken refrigerator and the buzz of a fly hovering near the body of Jerome, her co-worker, whose eyes were still wide open in horror. Outside, rain beat against the windows of Carson's diner. It had always been a quiet place, a 24/7 greasy spoon just off Highway 7, the kind of place truckers stopped for coffee and pie, and locals came to avoid their homes. Kayla had only taken the night shift because she needed the cash, saving up to move to Denver and leave her father's house for good. Now the diner smelled like burnt grease, blood, and death, and someone had locked the front door from the outside. Hours earlier, it was just after midnight when the first uneasy moment began. Kayla was wiping down the coffee station when she noticed the flicker in the lights, just for a second, and then the clock over the register reset. Jerome, older and easygoing, chuckled like he always did. "Storm must be messing with the power again," he said. "Welcome to Carson's." She smiled, tired. "As long as I get paid, let it rain." They were the only two working. Kayla on register and tables, Jerome cooking and watching TV in the back when it got slow. It was a boring shift most nights, one or two regulars, sometimes none. But around 12:45, a man came in, too clean. Black coat, hair slicked back, no umbrella, no rain on his shoulders, as if the storm outside didn't touch him. Kayla noticed that right away. He didn't smile, didn't blink much either. "Coffee," he said flatly, sitting in the corner booth. By the window, she nodded, grabbed a mug and walked over. His eyes followed her like a predator sizing up its prey. Something in her gut shifted. "You driving through?" she asked, trying to keep it casual. He didn't answer, just stared. Kayla poured the coffee and walked away fast. She didn't tell Jerome right away, but she wanted to. She felt stupid for being scared. He hadn't done anything. Yet at 1:07 a.m., a second man arrived. This one was nervous, twitchy, mid-30s, stubble, wet clothes clinging to him like he'd run through the rain. He rushed to the counter, asked if he could use the bathroom, and disappeared inside for almost 15 minutes. When he came back out, his eyes darted toward the man in the booth, then back to Kayla. "You got a back exit here?" he asked under his breath. "What?" Kayla frowned. "A back door. Out through the kitchen or something?" Jerome appeared behind the counter just then, holding a spatula and watching the man closely. "You looking to leave without paying?" he joked, trying to lighten the mood. The man didn't laugh. "She found me," he whispered. "She always does." And then he ran straight out the front door into the rain. Kayla and Jerome both stared after him, confused, unsettled. By the time they looked back, the first man was gone. No footsteps, no bell over the door, just an empty booth and a folded napkin. Kayla picked it up. Her hands trembled before she even read it. Don't believe the stories. What she buries always comes back. Jerome took one look and locked the doors. "We're calling the cops." "No cell service," Kayla whispered, staring at her screen. One bar, then none. The storm outside had knocked out signal again, like it sometimes did in the mountains. The landline behind the counter was dead too. Jerome grabbed his jacket. "I'll drive down to the gas station, call from there. Lock the door after me, okay?" She nodded, but Jerome never made it to the car. She saw it from the front window, saw his body flung into the air like a rag doll, smashing onto the diner's concrete lot with a sound that made her scream. She saw a woman, barefoot and soaked, standing over him, blonde hair covering her face. Then she looked up and smiled directly at Kayla. The lights inside the diner died all at once. Kayla ran, back through the kitchen, heart hammering, trying to remember if there was any way out. But the back door was chained shut, no windows big enough to crawl through. She turned off her phone flashlight the moment she heard glass shatter near the front. Then the humming began. Not a song, a strange, rhythmic sound. A woman's voice, humming something childish like a lullaby. Kayla ducked into the pantry, hiding behind the tall shelves of flour and pancake mix. She pressed a hand to her mouth to stop her sobs. Her knees ached, her breath burned, and then the humming stopped. Footsteps approached the pantry, slower than they should be, wet. The door creaked open. She could hear sniffing, like someone inhaling her fear. Then came the voice, calm, sweet, horrifying. "You're not like the others," the woman said. "You've got that look in your eyes, the kind that knows what it's like to be hunted." Kayla didn't move, not a breath. The woman stayed for another second, then, "I'll save you for last." The door closed again. Kayla didn't come out until she was sure the humming had faded. When she returned to the dining area, shaking barefoot, she saw Jerome's body on the floor inside now. Moved, placed deliberately, arms out, eyes open, and a phone in his pocket buzzing. It was her mom. That was when she grabbed it, and that's where we began. Kayla forced herself to move, to think. There was something carved into Jerome's arm. RTS, 1996. Her breath caught. That wasn't just random. She remembered that date. That was the year her mother was institutionalized for several months. Kayla had never known why, just that it had something to do with a house fire her mom refused to talk about. She didn't want to believe it, but she had to ask. She dialed her mom again. This time she picked up. "Mom," she whispered, "there's something happening. I need to ask. Do you know what RTS 1996 means?" Dead silence. Then, "Kayla, listen to me very carefully. You need to leave that diner right now." "I can't. The doors are chained and you're not safe there." "She's found you too." Kayla's vision blurred. "Who? What the hell is going on?" But her mother's voice trembled now. "You were just a baby. You were supposed to be safe from this. But if she marked you, if you saw her..." A deep breath. "There's a journal in my attic. Under the old floorboard. Find it. Everything's in there. I'm sorry I never told you." The line cut off. Behind her, a chair scraped the floor. Kayla spun around. The woman stood at the edge of the dining area, staring at her with those terrible eyes, and Kayla remembered. She'd seen those eyes before, in a dream, a nightmare that came every year on her birthday. A woman in flames, screaming, reaching for her crib. The humming started again. Kayla ran. Kayla didn't look back. She sprinted through the narrow kitchen, her breath burning in her chest. Behind her, the humming grew louder, broken, uneven, like the woman's voice was crumbling as it filled the space. It sounded close, too close. Kayla flung herself into the supply closet and yanked the door shut behind her, bracing her foot against the mop bucket to keep it jammed. She knew she had seconds, maybe less. Then silence. Her hand shook as she reached for Jerome's phone. Still slick with blood, the screen blinked to life. No signal, but the flashlight worked. She shone it toward the corner and saw what looked like a hidden vent. Square, rusted, barely large enough for her shoulders. But right now it was hope. She dropped to her knees and started unscrewing the bolts with the edge of a plastic lid from a food tub. Every scrape of metal on metal felt like a scream. Then came a whisper through the wall. Not a threat, a lullaby. "Don't you cry, little girl in the fire. I see your face and I see your liar." Her heart seized. The vent cover dropped. She crawled inside, biting her lip hard to stop from sobbing, and that's when she heard her mother's voice again. Not on the phone this time, but in her mind, memory crashing through fear like a flood. "I did what I had to. That house was evil, Kayla. She was evil. But sometimes the things you burn don't stay dead." 2 hours later, Kayla stumbled into the night, barefoot, soaked in blood and shaking. Somehow she'd made it out through the grease tunnel behind the diner, through broken crates and rusted pipes. She didn't speak, not to the trucker who picked her up, not to the police, not to the reporters who swarmed the scene by dawn. The diner was sealed off. Jerome's death was ruled unexplained trauma. No footage, no fingerprints, nothing. The woman was gone. But Kayla knew she wasn't free. Not yet. The next morning, Kayla broke into her mother's house. She used the spare key behind the gutter, the same place it had been since childhood. Everything inside was silent, too silent. It felt like entering a crypt. She went straight to the attic. Dust stung her throat. She tore up the floorboard with a crowbar. Beneath it was a weathered, leather-bound journal. Her mother's handwriting was frantic and looping. Every page dripped fear. The first words on page 1 made Kayla go still. Her name is Rosalind Tate Summer. The fire didn't kill her. It just gave her a reason to haunt. Rosalind's truth. The journal told a story Kayla had never heard. Her mother, Lydia, had grown up in a foster home run by a woman named Rosalind Tate Summer. A cold, bitter woman who believed children were broken things that needed punishment to be fixed. There had been whispers back then, of bruises hidden under sleeves, of children disappearing, of strange chants in the middle of the night. But no one believed the kids. The home was too clean, Rosalind too composed. Until one night in 1996, a boy named Evan tried to escape. He told Lydia about the cellar, the room below the room, where Rosalind took them to fix them. He said the voices came from the floorboards, that she made them chant names before she punished them, names of other kids, dead kids. Lydia waited until midnight, then lit a match and burned the house down. The fire killed 3 people, 2 children and Rosalind, or so she thought. Kayla dropped the journal. Everything clicked. The nightmares, the humming. The reason her mother never celebrated birthdays, that diner wasn't random. The night she almost died wasn't chance. Rosalind had found her. Kayla spent the next 3 days in hiding. She barely ate, barely slept. She kept seeing the eyes in her dreams. The way Rosalind had looked through the glass, as if she knew something Kayla didn't. And then came the moment that confirmed it all. Kayla woke up with a burn mark on her arm. Not a cut, not an infection, a perfect shape. A circle with a cross through it, exactly like the symbol she'd seen in the journal under the word bound. It meant she'd been chosen. She called her mother again. This time, Lydia answered immediately. "Do you have it?" Her voice trembled. "The journal, yes, she's marked me." There was a pause, a long one. Then Lydia whispered, "She never stopped. After the fire, I thought I ended it. But some things, they don't burn. Not all the way." "Why me?" Kayla said, voice cracking. "Why now?" "Because you're mine. And because Rosalind believes in blood." Lydia gave her the address, not the diner, not the orphanage. That was long gone. She told Kayla where Rosalind's real home had been, a farmhouse deep in the forest outside Ash Creek, abandoned since the fire. But Lydia had seen things, symbols painted on trees, offerings on the porch. "She's rebuilding," Lydia said. "She wants you to finish what I started." Kayla didn't want to go, but some truths burn hotter than fear. She packed a flashlight, matches, a knife, and the journal, and at sunset, she drove. The house was exactly where Lydia had said, off an old dirt path, covered in vines, surrounded by trees that felt too silent. No birds, no wind, just stillness. Inside, the air was heavy, like stepping into someone's mouth. The house was rotten, blackened at the edges from old fire damage. But in the back, past the living room, through a false wall, Kayla found the cellar. She almost threw up from the stench. Symbols lined the walls, names scratched into the stone, bones, doll parts, candle stubs, and in the middle, a wooden high chair, burnt, still smoldering. She stepped forward. Her foot touched something metal, a locket. She opened it. Inside, a photo of a girl, herself, as a toddler. Then the humming began again. From the shadows, Kayla didn't run. She turned, holding the matches. Rosalind stepped into view. Just as young as she'd looked at the diner, skin pale, dress soaking, hair clinging to her face, eyes bottomless. "You brought my book," she said. "You always were the smart one." "I'm not afraid of you," Kayla lied. Rosalind smiled. "Then you're finally ready." Kayla struck the match. The walls groaned. The room seemed to pull inward. Rosalind screamed, not in fear, but in rage. "You think fire can save you again?" "No," Kayla whispered. "But it can finish what my mother started." She dropped the match. The fire spread faster than it should have. By the time Kayla crawled out through a back window, the whole house was alight. She heard the humming one last time, high-pitched, desperate. Then it stopped. Forever. She called her mother. "It's done," she said. Lydia cried on the line. "You saved." "More than yourself, Kayla. You saved all of them." Kayla looked down at her arm. The mark was gone, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel hunted. She felt free. Rain hammered the windshield like a warning. Lydia gripped the steering wheel tighter as the dirt road wound deeper into the forest. Every now and then, her headlights would catch a flicker of something moving between the trees. An animal, she hoped. Anything but him. Behind her, Jacob groaned. "You okay?" she asked without turning around. His voice was barely audible. "My chest. It burns." She had already seen the red welts forming underneath his shirt, identical to the ones she saw on Ellie's body just before she died, in that exact spot 4 years ago. But no one believed her. Not then. Not even now. She pulled up to the old ranger's cabin, abandoned for years, forgotten by most maps. Her hand trembled as she reached for the flashlight. The storm outside raged, but not louder than her thoughts. She had come back for answers. But the woods didn't forget. It had started with a dare, a viral trend, Haunt Me challenge, where people returned to the place where they lost someone. Lydia had ignored it until a stranger tagged her in a video, a blurred image of Laurel Creek with a girl's whisper echoing in the background. "Lydia, help me!" Ellie's voice. It couldn't be. She was dead, drowned in that creek, they said. Body found bloated and blue, case closed. Lydia had tried to move on. She had therapy. She started school again. She was even seeing someone, Jacob. But now, everything was falling apart. He had changed since they visited Laurel Creek for fun 2 weeks ago. He barely slept. Sometimes he woke up screaming in a voice that wasn't his, and his eyes, there were moments they didn't look like his anymore. So when Lydia packed their bags and told him they were getting away for the weekend, she didn't say where they were going. She didn't tell him it was a trap. The inside of the cabin smelled like rot and mold. Lydia used her flashlight to scan the corners. No power, no signal, no reason for anything to be working. Except one. The radio in the corner buzzed on by itself. "Jacob?" she called, backing away. He stood near the door, eyes unfocused, head tilted like he was listening to something only he could hear. She reached for his hand. Cold. Ice cold. "Do you remember anything that happened at the creek?" she asked softly. He blinked. Then his lips moved, but it wasn't his voice that came out. "She was supposed to drown alone." Lydia staggered back. "What?" "She pulled me in with her, but she didn't die. She changed. Now she wants you too." His eyes rolled back and he collapsed. They were inseparable, Lydia and Ellie, best friends since kindergarten. Opposites in every way. Lydia quiet and logical, Ellie wild and magnetic, but together they balanced. That day, they were at the creek alone. No phones, no signal, just a lazy afternoon of skipping stones and sharing secrets. Then Ellie's face went pale. She said she felt something watching them. "Don't you feel it?" she whispered. "Like the trees are breathing." Lydia laughed it off until Ellie walked into the water and never came back up. Now, Lydia stared at Jacob's unconscious form and realized the truth. Ellie hadn't drowned. Not fully, not spiritually. Something in that water had taken her and left behind something else, and Jacob was proof. That night, Lydia stayed awake by the window, flashlight on, bat in hand. Every hour she'd check on Jacob. His chest had gotten worse, the welts forming a circular pattern, almost like a mark. By dawn, she heard the singing, a girl's voice, sweet, familiar. It came from the creek. Lydia followed the sound, heart racing, steps slow. She knew the way. Her feet remembered it even if her brain screamed to turn back. There, sitting by the edge of the water, was Ellie. She looked exactly the same as the day she died. Same dress, same crooked smile. "I waited for you," she said. Lydia's breath caught. "Ellie." But then she saw it. Ellie's eyes. Too black, too deep. "You weren't supposed to leave me," she hissed. "We made a promise." Lydia took a step back. That we'd die together. Jacob came running, screaming her name, but Ellie was faster. The water rose, coiling around Lydia's legs like arms. "Let me show you," Ellie whispered. "Let me make you see." Lydia woke up on the floor, soaked and shaking. Jacob sat beside her, pale and dazed. "She's in my head," he whispered. "I see her even when I close my eyes." Lydia knew what had to be done. They had to go back to the creek. They had to end this, or one of them wouldn't leave alive. They returned just before nightfall. The trees loomed like watchers. The air hung heavy. Lydia stood at the edge of the water. "Ellie," she called, "I'm here." The surface rippled. Then Ellie emerged. Not walking, not floating, but something in between. "You finally." In came back. Jacob stepped forward. "Take me instead." Ellie turned to him. "You're already mine," she reached out. Lydia shouted, "Wait! You never wanted him. You wanted me." Ellie paused. "You drowned that day, but your soul didn't move on. It's stuck, and you're dragging others down with you." Ellie's smile faded. "You left me," she whispered. "I was scared." "Then be scared with me," Ellie screamed, and the water surged. Lydia grabbed the flare from her bag and fired it into the air. The light exploded, pure, blinding, holy. Ellie screamed, her figure warping in the firelight. The creek hissed, boiling, and then silence. Jacob was never the same. The welts faded, but his mind carried scars no one could see. Lydia left town, but before she did, she visited Ellie's mother. She wasn't alone when she died, Lydia said. She was scared, but she wasn't alone. The woman wept, and for the first time in years, Lydia felt peace, but sometimes on cold nights. She dreams of the creek and of Ellie, still waiting, still whispering. The clock struck 3 a.m. when Tara opened the last message from Mira. "You still don't know what I did, but you will, soon." Tara's hands trembled as she stared at the message glowing in the dark. Mira had been dead for 5 days, or at least the police said she was. Drowned. In her car. No signs of foul play. But this message, sent at 2:59 a.m., wasn't a scheduled post. Wasn't spam. It was her number. Her name, her best friend's name, and Tara knew in that moment her life was about to shatter. Again. 6 months earlier, Tara and Mira had been roommates, business partners, and practically sisters for nearly a decade. Together, they built a successful wellness brand from the ground up. Soulskin, a handmade skincare line known for ethical sourcing and heartfelt storytelling. Their story was inspirational. 2 women who rose from trauma, Mira surviving a childhood cult, Tara rebuilding her life after an abusive marriage, and found success through healing, or so Tara believed. What she didn't know was that Mira had been healing nothing, only hiding everything, and Tara had just found the first crack. It began when an accountant flagged a massive discrepancy, over $240,000 missing from the company account. The bank traced the transfers. They'd been siphoned monthly for over 2 years, all signed off by Mira. Tara had confronted her, crying, screaming, confused. Mira didn't deny it. "I had to," she said coldly. "You wouldn't understand." Tara did the unthinkable. She called the police, and 3 days later, Mira drove into the lake. The guilt nearly destroyed her. The public fallout was brutal. News articles, angry customers, online attacks. CEO turns on her best friend. Founder of wellness brand triggers partner's suicide. And worst of all, you betrayed her. Tara stopped leaving the house. She sold the company, deleted her accounts. She stayed indoors, lived off savings, and only spoke to her dog, Milo, until the message came. Tara didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor, her phone clutched to her chest, scrolling old photos. They laughed together, cooked together, slept in the same bed during storms. She knew Mira's scars, her secrets, or she thought she did. The next day, she visited Mira's grave, except there was no grave, only a closed casket ceremony and cremation. Mira's parents had kept the ashes, or so they said, but when Tara visited the funeral home, pretending to inquire about a different service, she learned something chilling. No body was ever released. In fact, there was no record of Mira's remains being cremated at all. Suddenly, everything changed. Tara hired a private investigator, and what he found shattered her world. Mira hadn't died. She'd faked her death, used a doppelganger corpse found in a morgue, an unclaimed body from a drug overdose, and disappeared. The car was rigged, the scene carefully constructed, and the messages scheduled and automated through a remote system. But the message at 2:59 a.m. wasn't pre-scheduled. That one was real time, because Mira was still watching. Tara spiraled, paranoia grew. She disconnected her Wi-Fi, trashed her phone, switched locations, and finally booked a cabin in the woods to think clearly. That's when she heard the knock. No, one should have known she was there. She stood frozen, staring at the door. Another knock, 3 slow bangs, then silence. Tara crept forward, heart thudding, bat in hand. She flung open the door. No one, but on the porch. A note. "I had to disappear. You'll thank me one day." And Tara returned home and began digging deeper. The bank transfers Mira made, they weren't to offshore accounts. They were payments to women's shelters, legal aid for domestic violence victims, and anonymous donations to missing persons foundations. Hundreds of them. Every stolen dollar Mira took, she gave away. Tara reached out to one of the shelters listed. They confirmed it. Mira used a false name, the director said. She paid for 6 women to escape. One had her abuser arrested. One got custody of her kids. That's when the guilt shifted, from betrayal to heartbreak. Mira had never stolen from her. She had protected her. Mira had feared the brand's success would corrupt them, make them forget why they started. So she created a new identity, funded dozens of escape plans, and used her own death to disappear before the law could catch up. She knew Tara would hate her, but she also knew Tara would survive it. Tara sat at the edge of the lake one evening, staring at the water where Mira had died. She recorded a voice note, not to post, not to send, just to say it aloud. "You were never the villain. You were the storm. You shook everything so I'd remember why we started. I hated you for what you did, but now I get it." She paused. "I just wish you'd trusted me enough to tell me." She cried for the first time in weeks, not because she was broken, but because she had finally begun to heal. 3 weeks later, Tara received a package. No return address, no fingerprints. Inside was a handwritten letter. "T, if you're reading this, it means you found the truth. I always knew you would. I couldn't stay, not with the press, the lawsuits, and what we built turning into something I didn't recognize. But I never stopped loving you, not once. The world broke me long before you found me, but you were my second chance. Keep healing, keep helping, keep burning down the things that cage women, and one day, maybe not now, maybe not soon, you'll understand why I had to burn myself too. Emtara relaunches Soulskin, this time as a non-profit, offering resources to survivors of abuse, mental health support, and emergency aid. No products, just purpose. She stands on stage at the launch event, holding back tears. Sometimes, she says into the microphone, the people who hurt us the most aren't trying to break us, they're trying to remake us. Applause. Later that night, she sees a woman in the crowd. Black hoodie, familiar eyes, gone in a blink. But Tara smiles. She doesn't chase. Some ghosts are better left free. The smell was back again. Metallic, sharp, like old blood soaked into the walls. And this time, Ava knew it wasn't in her head. When Ava and her husband Jonah moved into the old stone house tucked into a pine-dense corner of Vermont, they called it their fresh start. After years of infertility, 2 miscarriages, and nearly divorcing, the secluded house with ivy-wrapped windows promised peace. Ava didn't ask why the rent was so cheap. She didn't ask why the back half of the basement was sealed off with welded iron bars, and she didn't ask why the landlord only met them at night, but she would learn everything too late. It began 3 weeks after they moved in. At first, it was the smell. Iron, earth, something decaying. Then came the tapping. Always. Around 3:13 a.m. At first, Jonah thought it was rats. He laughed it off, kissed Ava's forehead, and promised to set traps. But when the tapping began turning into knocks and the knocks began forming rhythms, Ava stopped laughing. One night she went downstairs alone. The air was ice. Something shifted. Behind the iron bars, she stood there, heart pounding, whispering, "Who's there?" No answer. Just one soft knock. Once, twice, pause 3 times. Then silence. Ava found the journal behind a loose brick in the living room fireplace. It belonged to a girl named Clara Westwood, dated 1981. Each page was written in frantic, terrified handwriting. They say the house eats sadness. That's why the families who come here never stay happy for long. My mom buried my brother behind the iron door. She said he kept screaming even after he died. If anyone finds this, don't try to open it. Don't feed it your grief. It feeds on broken things. Ava stopped reading. She and Jonah had lost a baby just 4 months ago. This house had chosen them. Jonah began changing. At first, he was distant, then violent. One night, he shoved Ava during an argument. She had never seen that look in his eyes before, like he wasn't Jonah at all. He apologized the next morning, cried, promised it would never happen again, but something was wrong with his reflection. In the bathroom mirror, she saw a version of Jonah staring at her with a crooked smile, a reflection that didn't blink when he did. That night, Jonah told her, "I saw our baby in the basement. He was calling to me." Ava's heart shattered. Jonah had never even seen the son they lost. Not really. The ultrasound had stopped showing a heartbeat before he was born. Ava took a crowbar to the iron gate. Jonah screamed at her not to. He begged, then threatened, but she pried the bolts loose. One by one, the door creaked open. A stairway led deeper underground, far beneath the house's foundation. She took her phone, flashlight on, and descended. The air was wet, like breathing through cloth. The stairs seemed endless. Then the room opened. Small. Stone. Empty. Except for one thing, a crib inside. A bundle. Not moving. Not crying, Ava reached forward and peeled back the blanket. Nothing but dirt and bones. And then a scream behind her. Jonah. Jonah rushed her, trying to stop her from leaving the room. His voice changed, deep, twisted, layered. He sobbed, It could have had a family again." Ava realized then. It wasn't Jonah talking, it was the house, using his grief, using his guilt, twisting his love into obsession. She ran up the stairs, but Jonah followed, slamming walls, smashing lamps, laughing, and sobbing all at once. "You'll kill him again. You always kill them." Ava grabbed the one thing nearby, the iron poker, and swung. He collapsed, unmoving. Police arrived the next morning. They said Ava was lucky to escape, that Jonah had a breakdown, that grief makes people unstable. They never found the hidden basement room. They never found the crib, and no one believed her story. But Ava knew. This wasn't a story of mental illness or ghostly delusion. This was a predator of a house, a parasite that lured in grieving people, fed on their pain, and turned love into destruction. She left Vermont, changed her name, but she still hears the tapping sometimes, late at night. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more, as if the house is still calling her home. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She blinked twice, staring at the tombstone like it would change if she looked again, but the words remained. Elena Jane Marsh, born October 12, 1992, died June 18, 2025. She looked at her phone. Today was June 11th. She wasn't dead, not yet. It all began with a letter, plain envelope, no stamp, no return address. Inside, 1 photo, 1 line. The photo showed Elena sleeping in her bed, taken from inside her room. The note read, "You've been chosen. The earth remembers who was meant to stay buried." She laughed it off at first. Her roommate, Lila, loved dark jokes. But Lila had been missing for 2 days, and her phone kept ringing once, then hanging up. Elena lived in a crumbling Victorian house turned into 4 apartment units. Her room was in the attic. Creaky floors, low ceilings, and drafty windows. But 2 nights after the letter arrived, she heard something strange. A door creaking, not hers, not the front, but a hollow thud, like a trap door being opened. She followed the sound, past the hallway, behind the linen closet, and found it, a wooden panel she'd never noticed before. She pressed it. It gave way, revealing narrow stairs leading downward, into a room that shouldn't exist. Old wallpaper peeled from the walls. A child's drawing still clung to a corner, a broken rocking chair swaying gently, and in the center, a second gravestone. Her name again, but this time her face was carved into it, screaming. She called the police. They found nothing. The room was gone, the panel sealed. Even the gravestone had vanished. They chalked it up to stress, grief, sleepwalking. But Elena knew something wasn't right. Her dreams began to bleed into reality. She dreamed of dirt in her mouth, of worms in her lungs, of voices saying, "We buried you because you begged us to." Then Lila returned, but she was different. Quiet, pale, her eyes always flickering to shadows. She sat down across from Elena and whispered, "We did it wrong. We brought you back." But it came too. Elena froze. "What are you talking about?" Lila slid over an old newspaper. Headline, "Local girl found dead, buried alive by mistake." The picture was Elena. Same face, same birth date, same name, but dated 2015. Lila trembled. "You weren't supposed to wake up, Elena. We broke the pact. Now it wants both of us." The walls started breathing. Lights flickered without power. Elena felt her memories fading. First, her childhood, then her friends, then her own birthday. Lila admitted they were part of a grief ritual gone wrong. "You died 10 years ago. We called you back because we missed you. But we didn't bring back just you." The entity they summoned, the mourner, feeds on forgotten souls, souls that don't belong among the living. Elena was one of them, half here, half gone, and now it wanted to complete the cycle, to bury her again, this time properly. Elena had 2 choices: let herself be buried, to seal the mourner away forever. Run, dragging it behind her, dooming others as she survived unnaturally. Lila begged her, "Go back, be free." But Eleanor wasn't ready to die again, not until she chose it. So she made a 3rd choice. She went back to the hidden room. She carved a 3rd gravestone, but not for herself. She carved one for the mourner, with its name, its true name, the name no one speaks, and she called it aloud. The ground shook, walls screamed, Lila vanished, dragged into dust. But Elena remained standing, alone, alive, and this time the tombstone said, Elena Jane Marsh, survivor, not forgotten. Elena moved to the coast, got a job at a shelter, rebuilt a life from bones and whispers, and when people asked why she always slept with her light on, she smiled and said, because once I lived in the dark, and now I know how to find my way back out. The end.